Hi. So last month I gave a intro to crypto data talk at an Ethercra meetup, and after that I got a few tweets from people asking if there was a recording. There wasn't a recording, so I thought I'd make this video summarizing some of the key points of that presentation that I gave. I'll run through some simple key concepts, and then we'll do a case study together. And finally, I'll refer you to some resources that you can look at if you want to continue your crypto data journey on from there. This isn't an edited video, so I'll stop and start a lot and probably get confused at some points, but just bear with me. First slide. What is a blockchain? Most of you will already know this. Think of it really just as an unchangeable record of transactions. So this person sent money to that person and vice versa. And it's good that it's unchangeable because when you're dealing with financial information, you don't want somebody to be able to go back and change the record so that your money belongs to them or something along those lines. In 2009, Bitcoin launched, and the Bitcoin blockchain really just records one type of transactions where users send and receive the native token Bitcoin. And then in 2015, Ethereum launches, also tracking people transferring the native token, but introducing a radical new type of transaction, people interacting with apps that are deployed on the blockchain using smart contracts. Smart contracts, honestly, feels like bad branding decisions were made. Doesn't really make sense. Should have just called them apps, but that's personal opinion. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start off showing you an example of how to deal with data around transactions where people send each other the native token of the chain, in this case, sending ETH or receiving ETH on Ethereum. We're going to use Dune Analytics for this. Dune's a great platform for analyzing, blockchain data. Basically what they do is that they index all the transactions for a bunch of different chains so that you can come in and write code on top of that database without needing to run a bunch of your own infrastructure. So, if you want to follow along, you'd sign up for Dune. What we're going to do is that we're going to do this as a bit of a case study, use a real world example. We're going to pretend as if we are consultants, data science consultants who've been hired by Binance Charity. You're all familiar with Binance, big exchange, and Binance Charity does this thing where they let people donate crypto to contribute to a bunch of different causes. So school meals for kids or flood relief or whatever the topic is. So we've been hired by them. We've been given their wallet address, and they want to know how much ETH token has been sent to them on the Ethereum blockchain. To start off, we will open up a new query on Dune. So if you've signed up, you'll see this create tab and you'll be able to start a new query. We're going to start by just looking at a few example transactions that involve the Binance Charity wallet, and then we'll go on to answering their question about how much ETH has been sent to them. When you start a new query, you'll see a view that looks like this. 3 main panels on the left, a data explorer that will help you find all of the different data tables that are available on Dune. We'll look at that more in a minute. A code editing panel on the right where you'll actually write your data analysis code, and then a results panel where you'll see the results of different queries that you've run. In terms of the tables that we'll be looking at, to know how much, to look at example transactions of that involve this particular wallet, we'll use the raw blockchain data section and go to Ethereum because we're looking at Ethereum transactions, and we will use the Ethereum transactions table to answer this question. I've already written a query here. Let me give you a quick rundown of what that code means. This is in SQL, which is a very simple programming language to learn and is used by data scientists everywhere. It's basically like English. And what I've done is that I've written a statement that says select everything. A select statement is basically something that you use to select data from a data table. Usually you might specify the specific names of the columns that you want. Think of it like an Excel spreadsheet. Has columns and rows. So you tell it what columns you want, but if you use a star instead, like I've done here, to just select all the columns from a table, in this case called Ethereum transactions. Very self-explanatory. It's all Ethereum transactions. And then I've added a where clause. Now, a where clause lets you filter by some specific criteria. So the Ethereum transactions table has a column called from and a column called to what wallet was making the transaction is from, and whoever was receiving the transaction is to. So I want to look at transactions where the to address, the receiver, was Binance Charity, and then I've added a limit clause, limit 10, basically meaning that I only want to see 10 of those transactions. I know that's maybe a lot to digest, but I promise that you'll start to get familiar with these things as you do a bunch more transactions after you watch this, a bunch more queries after you watch this. Yeah, you know what I mean, as you practice more. So I click this run button to run that query, and I can see some example transactions here. The Ethereum transactions table has a few kind of key elements to look at. You can see the time when the transaction happened. You can see the value in terms of how much ETH was sent. I know those numbers look crazy big. I'll explain why in a minute. You can see how much gas was used and the gas price if you want to calculate the gas fee paid for the transaction. As I mentioned, you can see the wallet that made the transaction, the from wallet, and the receiver of the transaction, the to wallet, or in some cases a contract, and some other information that we'll get to later. To answer real quick why the value is so big, obviously somebody didn't send Binance Charity a bajillion ETH. What's happening here is that when the Ethereum blockchain was created, a design decision was made to store the amount of ETH sent in a transaction in a denomination called Wei. So 10 to the power 18 Wei is 1 ETH. It had something to do with the fact that storing floating point numbers, so numbers with the decimal place, is not as efficient as just storing a really big number and then having people do that division themselves later. Yeah, I don't know. It was a choice. But this is actually a value that's in Wei, and you'd need to divide it by 10 to the power 18 to get the amount in ETH. So yeah, we've run one query on Dune to see some transactions involving the Binance Charity wallet, but we want to answer the specific question, which was how much ETH got sent to us. Well, and comment that out. And so we will then write a new query that I'm going to uncomment. And this new query has a few new elements to introduce to you. We're still going to be using a select statement to select data from the Ethereum transactions table. But we're going to add some new functions. The first line of this query says date trunk month block time. Looks really confusing. All that means is that date trunk is a function that we're going to use to extract the month of the transaction, when the transaction happened, from the block time column. So, we know when the transaction happened, we can see the block time very specifically, but we just want the month where it happened. And then there's another function that we're going to use. We're going to use the sum function. Again, pretty similar to Excel. You've seen sums in Excel. We're going to sum all of the values. And as I just mentioned, the value column is the amount of ETH that was sent in that transaction. And we're going to divide the value by 10 to the power 18. So you get the value in ETH instead of in Wei. And finally, we're going to name those two new columns that we've created as month and as the amount that was donated. Again, using Ethereum transactions, and again, using a where clause to filter for transactions where the receiver of the transaction is the Binance Charity wallet. Finally, you can see a group by clause there. Group by allows us to group the results by one or more columns. In this case, I want to get the sum of the ETH that was sent every month. So, by writing, group by one, I'm saying group by the first column, group by month, which means that when I run this, if this is correct, I should get the amount of ETH that was sent to the Binance Charity wallet, and I should get that amount for every month of the year. So now I've gotten the result I was looking for. I can see how much Ethereum was sent to this particular wallet over the past, however many months. Maybe I want to see this visually, because seeing it in a table is a bit not that useful. I can click on this visualization button to make a bar chart where, the x-axis is the month and the y-axis is the amount that was donated in ETH. We'd think that works fine. Now, you might say this doesn't seem like a lot. Binance is a huge organization. Why is there so few donations? Like 6 ETH isn't much. But you have to take into account, of course, that folk can donate tokens can donate all types of tokens on all types of chains, not just ETH on Ethereum. And Binance Charity, our client in this case, kind of forgetting that this is meant to be a case study, they have a very similar question. They're like, okay, we see how much ETH people have sent to us, but maybe they're sending a bunch of money to us in other tokens. So can you help us in that way to figure out how much money was sent to us in other tokens on the Ethereum blockchain first, and then expanding to other blockchains? To answer that question for them, we would then be venturing into the realm of data for transactions that involve smart contracts. If somebody wants to make a new token on the Ethereum blockchain or on any other blockchain, what they do is that they deploy a contract for that. The standard in the Ethereum ecosystem world for making a token is the ERC20 contract. Most of you might have heard that term. ERC20 is just a standard for making token contracts. And what the contract does in that case is that it tracks who owns how much of which token, and it allows you to transfer some of your balance to other users. We could, for example, look at some transactions of people sending USDT token to the Binance Charity, USDT being a popular stablecoin. One USDT is worth $1. Same as before, we're easing into things. We might want to just look at some example transactions that involve USDT. Now, dissimilar from the first query that we looked at, when you're looking at transactions involving a smart contract, the smart contract is always the receiver of the transaction. It is the to address. Because what happens is that, if I am interacting with a smart contract, I am making a transaction and sending it to that smart contract to tell it what to do for me. In the case of a token, I might be telling it to, transfer some of my balance to somebody else, or to approve this app to spend that balance. But either way, the contract is the receiver. So if we wanted to look at some examples, we would, look at Ethereum transactions where the to address is the smart contract's address. In this case, the smart contract is USDT. You'll see that everything looks exactly the same. We can see the time when the transaction happened. We can see the gas used and gas price information. The main differentiator here is that there's a lot of stuff happening in the data column now. The data of the transaction is basically containing the specific instructions that we're giving to the smart contract. It's telling it that we either want to do a transfer, we want to do an approval, and who we want to do that with and how much. And that gets, packed and decoded into this crazy looking, data structure that you see here. So, okay, these are some raw transactions in terms of raw transaction data involving USDT, but we want to see how much USDT was sent to Binance Charity. And we don't want to have to actually pass through all of this, really messy looking data. I mean, kind of chopping it up and converting it into all of the different formats. It's just a lot of trouble. But thankfully, we don't need to do that because Dune has this concept called Dune spells. Dune spells are basically tables that allow you to build on the shoulders of giants. Other data scientists have come before you. They've done a bunch of analysis on some topic or other, and you can then use the table that they've made to, answer the question that you need to answer. So, for example, in the spells tables, we will be able to find a table that that somebody has already worked on that decodes all of the ERC20 transfers that have ever happened on Ethereum, so you can simply see how much token was sent to who and when it happened, and really simplify that. So in the Data Explorer, we were looking at raw blockchain data, raw transactions, but we can enter the spells section to find the spells. And I mean, the first thing that pops up, even as we're scrolling through the bunch of different ones for different topics, is the ERC20 spells. And we can see that there's a table here called ERC20 transfer events. And that seems like exactly what we want. Token transfers. And we'd use that to figure out how much got sent to our clients in this case. So then we'd write a new query. In this case, looking at transactions where the contract address is the token, the USD token that we're looking at, or you could replace that with a different token. And the receiver of the token is Binance Charity, having those as two where clauses. Selecting the data from the ERC20 Ethereum event transfer table, you can use this little arrow button to insert the table name in there. And then we specifically want to pick the time when the transaction happened and the value of the transaction, saving that as the amount that was sent, giving it that column name. So I can run that. Might just take a moment to run. And then, we can see just two examples here of somebody having sent, in one case, how much is this? 100,000 USDT, and in this case, 214,000 USDT to the Binance Charity wallet on Ethereum. I don't want you to feel, obviously, like you need to have perfectly understood everything that just happened over the past 10 minutes. It's a bunch of code to throw at you if you're not familiar with SQL yet, and a lot of context. But I just kind of wanted to serve this as an introduction to what does it look like when you're interacting with crypto data on a platform like Dune. To continue on from here, say, okay, well, I get the general idea of what's going on, but how do I actually learn this properly? My recommendation would be to go to Twitter, go to Andrew Hong's Twitter account. He's the best educator that we have in the crypto data space. You can see his handle here. If you search for Lemio, if you search for, Andrew Hong, probably be able to find it. He's got a link in his bio that you can click, and a bunch of really great resources to start with there. So I would use the Get Started with Ethereum Analysis tab to find his basic guides to Dune and Ethereum data analytics. I mean, he's made many, many versions of this article, but I remember the first version of it that he wrote back in 2020 or something like that. I remember reading that and finding it really helpful. And at the end of this guide, there's a link to an advanced guide. I would also advise joining his Byte Explorers community. There's a link there to learn about Byte Explorers. It's basically a sort of a group chat where you can get help with, answering, your data analysis questions, like how to do this, how to do that, and also get challenges to practice every week, and, even win some rewards if you're good at those challenges, and get access to sort of information for jobs around the kind of crypto data space. So yeah, that is the quick intro. I'm not sure how helpful this would be, to be honest. It's not very well planned or edited, but I hope that you get the general idea of you can have people or yourself come to you with questions about what happened and on this little corner of the Ethereum blockchain or the Solana blockchain or Binance Smart Chain. You can come to a platform like Dune, you can start a query, and you can find the raw transaction data for that chain and, do some SQL to answer your question. And if you're faced with a problem that's too hard, you can use a table that somebody else has made so that, the work's a little bit easier. Like in the case of, trading on DEXs, instead of having to do a bunch of pre-work yourself, you could just go to the DEX trades table, and there's a bunch of, really great data here on every single trade that's been made on most DEXs, on most chains. And yeah, you can just play around with that, answer your own questions, answer other people's questions, share the things that you're researching online. And 6 months of doing that, I promise you'll find some really great opportunities for yourself, whether that's self-porting your own sort of project that you're doing in crypto, or maybe getting a job helping other people build their projects. But yeah, that was that. Have a good rest of the day.